What's up, everybody? I'm Kenjack, and as always, I am here to give you a recap of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, this time for the finale, Episode 6, final episode of the series. There was a lot of shit that went down in this episode, so let's just get right to it. By the way, it's about 4 o'clock in the morning, so if you notice the luggage under my eyes, just ignore it, please. So just to give you a quick recap for maybe those of you that haven't watched the episode yet, that are just starting this video, I really liked the finale. I had some problems with it, but I can't really get into it without going more into spoilers, so we're going to go straight into spoilers now. So if you haven't watched, turn it off. We pick up right where the last episode left off. You know, the GRC's having their meeting, they're on lockdown, Flag Smashers have infiltrated the building, and Sam and Bucky are trying to catch up and figure out what's going on. Bucky's about to enter the building from the ground floor when all of a sudden Sharon Carter shows up. And she's wearing one of those like face mask things that you would normally see in Mission Impossible, but we've seen in Marvel before, namely when Black Widow wears it in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. The Flag Smashers in the building hear that Falcon's almost there, so they let off these gas bombs and start a whole panic, get everyone running all over the place. And at that moment, Sam bursts through the window in his brand new Captain America / Falcon suit. He's got the shield, he does the move, and he even does the little, the Captain America head nod, I'll call it. He has his own version of it. And they also have like this sort of meld of like the Captain, it's Falcon's theme, but it also has the fanfare of Captain America. His suit looks so cool, it's badass, it's more practical looking and less shiny and less like nanotechy than maybe like the Black Panther suit, but it looks awesome. Before Sam can work his way through and find some other Flag Smashers, Batroc shows up and challenges him to a one-on-one fight, hand-to-hand. Don't know why. I mean, come on, guy. Just you get a gun. As this is happening, Bucky gets a call from Carly, and she just is trying to flip him basically to her side. And then they find out that that's just all a ruse to keep him busy because essentially all the GRC members are being evacuated, but what they don't know is that they're being evacuated by Flag Smashers who are leading them into an ambush. All of the high-value GRC members are put into these armored car things, and they're sealed in from the outside secretly by a Flag Smasher who's dressed up like a guard. The trucks drive away, and Bucky goes after him on a motorcycle, and in the meantime, Sharon Carter incapacitates the Flag Smasher guard guy by using this little, like, it was like almost like the new Apple AirTag things, except instead of being like a rip-off of tile, it kind of emitted this gas, and she said it was called mercury vapor, and it just melted this dude's face. Sam is having a really cool fight with Batroc. It's got some similar vibes to his fight versus Steve Rogers and Captain America: The Winter Soldier, some of the similar moves, but he abandons that, jumps out the window to go and try and save some more of the GRC members. One of the GRC members is being flown away on a helicopter by a Flag Smasher unwittingly, and Falcon just comes in, he tries to like save them a bunch of different ways and ends up saving instead some NYPD guys that were in a helicopter chasing them. He does this really cool move too. He like puts them in this tortoiseshell thing with the wings and also the shield on top. It looked really cool. In the meantime, Bucky catches up to Carly, who's now with the armored cars with all those GRC members sealed inside, and she wants to distract him so that they can get away, and so she sets one of them on fire with a bunch of gasoline. While Bucky's trying to open up the back of that armored car, Walker shows up trying to get even for Lamar's death with Carly. The Flag Smashers are all beating the shit out of Walker, but before they can finish him off, Bucky shows up. He just saved all the GRC members in the armored car, and he stops them from killing him. Most of the Flag Smashers are sort of incapacitated, but Carly goes and grabs the other armored car and drives it like into this big construction pit. Now this is a cool moment because Walker essentially is given a choice. He sees the big armored car about to fall down into the construction pit on one side, and then he sees Carly on the other. So he has the option to either go get his revenge and get even for Lamar's death, or he can save those people that need his help. He chooses to save the people, and he grabs the truck and starts dragging it up, and while he's doing it, they're playing the theme that played in Captain America: Civil War when Bucky and Steve Rogers were fighting Tony Stark. I don't know what the meaning is behind that specifically, but it was great dramatic music. Walker gets stopped from saving them by some of the Flag Smashers, but Sam swoops in and kind of pushes the truck back up onto the street. This is a really cool moment because it's basically the first time that the public gets a look at Sam as Captain America, and one of the people in the crowd goes, "Yeah, that's the Black Falcon," and another guy goes, "No, that's Captain America." So now we have the trio of Sam, Bucky, and now Walker, and they're all about to fight the remaining Flag Smashers, but the truck shows up with like a grenade launcher, shoots a bunch of smoke cover, and all the Flag Smashers scatter out into this like construction site. The Flag Smashers all split up, and Carly is confronted by Sharon, who is now revealed to be the power broker. They have a conversation, and Sharon is trying to get Carly to come back to her side, and Carly is sort of hesitant because she's like, we don't share the same vision. I don't want to be your muscle man, neither do any of the Flag Smashers, and you want to control the world, but we want to change it. That Truck shows up, and turns out he's been listening in on the entire conversation, and he tries to blackmail Sharon and say, like, look, you got to pay me 4 times whatever you were going to pay me, or else I'm going to expose to the world that you're the power broker. Sharon's like, no thanks, shoots him, kills him, and in the chaos of that, Carly shoots and wounds Sharon. And at this exact moment, Sam shows up. So Sam and Carly have a big fight, and you can see Sam's trying his hardest not to kill or not even really hurt Carly. And you could tell, like, he still believes that the cause she's fighting for is not incorrect, but again, it's just the way she's going about things that's wrong. And he thinks that she's just someone that's sort of lost her path. She beats the shit out of Sam and is about to finish him off when Sharon intervenes and shoots Carly and kills her. And her last words to Sam are, "I'm sorry." And they probably should have been, "Hey, Sharon's the power broker." I'm just kidding. Sam probably didn't even know that they knew each other. Sam brings Carly's body back above ground, and there's a bunch of reporters, a bunch of people wanting to know what's going on. And the first people I guess that Sam talks to are the GRC people that he saved. They all thank Sam for saving them, and they're like, "Yeah, thanks for beating those terrorists. You know, we're gonna do our part now." And he's like, "We're not exactly on the same side here." He tries to explain to them, like, you got to show some empathy. Like, there's the reason that people believed in this cause, and they're very, very hostile to that idea. And Sam is basically like, you have to start showing some empathy and stop thinking about the world in such practical terms. And they are super, super, super hostile to that idea, which, by the way, makes them like the worst politicians of all time for having this conversation out in the open and surrounded by reporters. Sam tries to break it down to them like, look, so many people agreed with the Flag Smashers cause that they were willing to like take up arms and fight against these massive governments against overwhelming odds, and like, don't you think that there was a reason behind that? He kind of tries to keep them humble by telling them like, think about where you were when the snap happened and like how helpless you felt, and like that is what these people feel, and you no longer empathize with them. So you need to get back to your roots, and like your job as world leaders is to protect the people that you serve. I really, really love this speech from Sam. And you might be thinking like the beginning of this episode when Sam shows up and he's got the shield and he's got the stars and stripes, that's when he became Captain America. But I disagree. I think this moment right here is when he became Captain America, because he essentially says, you know, fuck practicality, fuck like any of this like gray area shit. Good is good. And that's like the bottom line. To me, like that's the spirit of Steve Rogers. So that to me is the moment now that Sam became Captain America. After that, we get what I think is a jump forward in time to some of the Flag Smashers that were arrested being taken away in a different armored car. And as they're closing up the doors, one of the guards that's, you know, escorting them, he kind of gives them, you know, the one world, one people. He's a Flag Smasher and he's probably going to release them at some point later. Close up the doors, they drive off, and then the armored car explodes. Cut to a shadowy figure overlooking this entire scenario in a car, and it's Zemo's butler, and he does the classic, you know, close up the detonator move. After that, we get a little look at Walker and his new relationship with Val. He shows up and he's got the black US agent suit, and she gives him like a little speech, you know, things are about to get weird. We're not going to need a Captain America anymore. We're going to need a U.S. agent. So now, like we expected, he's taking up the title of U.S. agent. After that, Bucky goes to the old man he was hanging out with in the first episode and gives him closure about the death of his son in what is a pretty emotional moment. He then gives his therapist his classic notebook with all the names in it, and he has got a bunch of them crossed out now. But one name I noticed in there, P.W. Hauser? Paul Walter Hauser? Is he on Falcon and the Winter Soldier shit list? After that, Sam goes to the Bradley house and has a discussion with Isaiah just about his sort of actions and how he's now basically Captain America. You could see Isaiah was a little hesitant at first, but you could see he's also very proud of Sam, and he says, like, he gives him his seal of approval, essentially. And then Sam takes him and his grandson Eli on a little field trip over to the Captain America Museum that we've seen a bunch of times, and he shows him, now there's a whole section dedicated to the experiments done on him and the other African Americans before the Korean War, and all of his actions that he went through in the Korean War to save all those guys from that POW camp. Then Isaiah has this embrace with Sam that I think is probably the most emotional moment that we've seen in the entire series so far. Then cut to this big opening day event for Sam's family business. You know, Sam and Bucky have like one final nice little like bro-y moment. And now for the post-credit. Sharon gets pardoned by the US government and she gets offered a job back with the CIA. She accepts and she walks out onto the steps of like the government building she gets pardoned in, and she calls up, I guess, her secretary and says, look, I know it sucks, we don't have the super soldier serum anymore, but now I'm gonna have unlimited access to US government secrets and shit that I can sell too. And that's the finale. And my thoughts on it are just like, I really enjoyed how they wrapped up the storylines of specifically Sam and Bucky, and that's, I think, the main and most important thing that they had to do, because obviously this is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's their show. I really like the way that they did Sam's story in this show, and I think that they were able to sort of work out his perception of how taking on the mantle of Captain America would be in real life, and just I found that they were subtle when they needed to be and loud when they needed to be too. Extremely well done. Props to Marvel for that. All that said, I do still have some gripes with it, namely that I do think the Flag Smashers were a little, they lack some depth. And you know, like one big scene from this ending episode was supposed to be Carly's death. Like that's supposed to be a big emotional gut punch, and I don't feel like we had that. I don't know if the sentimentality wasn't there, or I didn't really feel that way. I just didn't feel one way or the other. Also, I just didn't really like the reveal of Sharon Carter as the power broker, and maybe that's just because they obviously telegraphed it a little bit. For me personally, maybe not, because I honestly didn't think it was going to be her, but I guess we could talk about more with that in just let's say questions. So they obviously telegraphed that Sharon was going to be power broker in the last episode, but I didn't think it was going to be her, because in MCU canon she was snapped, and there was just no feasible way for her to have consolidated all of that power in just a few months, because the Falcon and the Winter Soldier only takes place a few months after the blip. And if she was super off the grid and was the power broker, it just didn't totally make sense to me, number one, why she would hinder her own plot in this entire series, or why she wouldn't reach out to Cap at some point during the events after the snap and try to get a pardon, because at that point it's 2018 and she was only on the run for 2 years, maybe a little bit less at that point. And Zemo had also noted that he knew who the power broker was, despite him being in a Supermax prison since 2016 in the Marvel timeline. And to me, Sharon's actions as the power broker just don't totally make sense, and maybe you guys can help me work my way through them. So in Madripoor, the trio of Sam, Bucky, and Zemo, they asked Sharon, like, we need to find this chemist that made the super soldier serum. Sharon finds the chemist and then leads the trio to them, and that trio includes Zemo. She's leading Zemo to the guy who created the super soldier serum. You know, she protects them against like an army of bounty hunters while they're in there talking to him. That scientist represents like $1 billion, maybe $1 trillion windfall for her, and so like I just don't understand why she would bring Sam and Bucky to him, and like Sam and Bucky might just arrest him or whatever. But like Zemo, the guy who dedicated his entire life, was currently rotting or was rotting in a Supermax prison for the sole purpose of stopping super soldiers, to her scientist, to her $1 trillion windfall. And for that matter, why she would risk her life in this like 20v1 bounty hunter fight when she could probably just call them all off. She's the fucking power broker. And in the post-credit, we see Sharon's like remorseful of the fact that she no longer has the super soldier serum. But she literally gave it up. And for what? For the possibility of getting pardoned? For the possibility of getting her job at the CIA back and getting assets from like their secrets and all that shit? She got the fucking super soldier serum. And why involve Batroc in the first place? Like, did she just want to make sure that the Flag Smashers were moderately more successful? Like, just successful enough that she secures a pardon? It just seems like so much of her motivation and her, I guess, like, planning, if you want to call it that, it all kind of relied on chance. I didn't like her reveal. I don't like how they did her entire arc, and just, that was a little bit of a bummer for me. The other big question on everyone's minds is Val. What is Val up to? What's going on with her? One theory posed out there is that she's a Skrull, and the theory would kind of check out because in the Secret Invasion comic book run, there was someone posing as, well, Skrull posing as Val. And obviously Secret Invasion is ramping up. You were getting castings all over the place, so maybe there's a connection there. Initially, I would think that that's not the case because she's not an established character yet, but remember, because of COVID, like all the timeline and TV releases were all messed up. And Val was supposed to be in Black Widow, and Black Widow was supposed to come out before Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so I could see that happening. What I think we're setting up for here is the Dark Avengers, and maybe namely because her scene here with Walker is very reminiscent to me of Nick Fury, let's say, recruiting Captain America at the end of the first Captain America movie / the first Avengers movie, and just it has that same vibe. And maybe she's someone that wants to do good, but just not in the same way that the Avengers are good, right? Like, she's got the black and white business card, you know, combine those, you get gray, and maybe she just wants to operate in that gray area, be a more pragmatic force for good. At the end of the day, I really did enjoy a lot about this episode, again, namely just the fact that they wrapped up the storylines of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier very well, and they are the most important thing about this series, so bravo there. As for the series on a whole, I really enjoyed it. A lot of twists and turns throughout it, great action, awesome fight choreography, great special effects. That movie quality production really came through all the way throughout it. It wrapped up some loose ends while opening up some new ones, and it explored a whole different sort of side of Marvel that, you know, we've never seen them do before. We've never seen them go into like the social area like this before, and they did it very well, again with a hint of subtlety that is very absent in a lot of other media. So bravo to them for that. And all I can think about now is how I cannot wait for Loki. So I'll see you when Loki comes out, but in the meantime, comment below, let me know about any Easter eggs I might have missed, and tell me what you thought about how the whole series wrapped up. And make sure to like and subscribe and all of that fun stuff. I'm Ken Jack. See you next time.